Right, and welcome to another episode of Sports Biz from an agent's perspective. We welcome you to our 12th episode with your host, Zila, aka Chester Mbekela. Whichever way you want to call me, I'm cool with it. And in today's episode, we're actually going to talk about a very important, topic that's close to my heart. As many of you do know, I am from South Africa. So today we're actually going to dive a little into South African football, the South African Football Association. We're going to talk about, the structures and what is it that is troubling with regards to South African soccer. So we're going to talk about that. But before we do that, we're going to run our weekly promotion regarding our social network platform that we created called Limitless Athlete Membership. All right. So what is Limitless Athlete Membership? It is a social network platform where coaches, players, and teams are able to connect and basically share their contact information by creating profiles. And once they do that, is that they are able to contact one another without an agent's intervention. All right. So I created this platform literally to give athletes and coaches a chance to get in touch with teams and be able to negotiate their own deals. Okay. Even though this platform is predominantly created for semi-professional and amateur athletes, professional sports teams, professional athletes, and professional coaches can also get on the platform and form their own little community. All right. So it's open to everybody. But because I am a professional sports agent, I know that sometimes players at a higher level, they do need the intervention of an agent to be able to negotiate with teams for them. Okay. So this platform literally serves predominantly semi-pro and amateur sports teams, athletes, and coaches. All right. So get on the platform, register, sign up, and then log in to create your profile, and then you can get started. There are teams that are already registered on the platform, so you can get on it, and they have their contact details. So you can make sure that once you're on it and you create a profile that markets you as a player and coach, that you're able to reach out to the teams and be able to sell yourself and market yourself. And hopefully you can be able to strike a deal and negotiate your own contract on how you can get there. All right, the platform is available to, people all over the world. All right, it doesn't matter where the sports team is based. You can be able to recruit locally and internationally. And from an athlete and coach's perspective, you can reach out to teams locally and internationally. The borders are opening up, COVID is starting to slow down and a lot more countries are opening up their borders. So athletes and coaches are going to be able to, move around a lot more. I know it's been a frustrating 2 years, and good for some of you for being patient and not retiring and letting go of the dream. I can only wish you luck. And I hope that my platform will be able to give you that opportunity to get in touch with a team. All right. And with referencing teams, I hope that this platform is a great tool for you to be able to do your recruiting for your next season. Okay, so the whole point is to create or give the opportunity for all three parties to create a community or ecosystem where they're able to reach out to one another. That was my inspiration for building this platform. All right, and once you're on the website, you can actually check out the demo video, which shows you how to use the website. All right. So to use it, you just go on your browser and go to www.limitlessathlete.net. That is www.limitlessathlete.net, and get started now. All right. I wish you luck on your sporting journey, and may your dreams come true. All right. So in today's podcast, we're actually going to talk about the troubling state of South African football. This is a topic, you constantly hear, when you're on the social media platforms, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Facebook, it doesn't matter. all you constantly hear about is just, people complaining about the state of, South African football. And rightly so, my opinion, and, everything that I'm going to basically unravel and basically diagnose within this podcast that is related to SA football, it's based on things that I've observed, all right? It's also based on things that, not things that I needed to research, things that I know. I've been in, the sports industry, man, since I finished high school, which was back in 2006. And even though I was in a different sport, I've always sort of been close to, to soccer. Wherever I've been, wherever I've lived, while pursuing my rugby career, I've always been connected to soccer players somehow. Okay? So that is pretty much what we're going to basically, just diagnose and just have a look at what is it that is so troubling within South African soccer. Okay? So, first and foremost, coming from a sport, that is outside of football, coming from rugby, the one thing that I can say that I found to be the difference between the two industries is structure. All right? When you look at South African football, we can never feel sorry for ourselves and say that, no, we need funding to be able to create, great infrastructure. That's bullshit. South African football has a ton of money. All right? They have a ton of money. So in that department, man, they can never, ever, ever make excuses. Okay? And then secondly, when it comes to talent, we can never complain and say that, no, we just don't have, the lethal weapons to, to form, a great football team. That is also absolute bullshit. When you go all the way from Gauteng right down to the Eastern Cape, man, to the rural areas, there is abundant talent. And you head off all the way to Natal, all the way to the rural areas in that sector, there is abundant talent. All right. The talent in the country, man, the talent in Africa, but, I'm just going to predominantly focus on South Africa today. It's there. The talent is there. But the question now remains, how do we make sure that that talent is filtered through? And that's where structure comes in. All right. Now, I'm going to give you some examples just coming from the rugby side. When you look at the rugby structures, you honestly are not surprised as to why the Springbok rugby team does so well. And I'm going to, just peddle it back, right to the beginning. When you're starting out as a rugby player, all right, and let's say you show potential at a young age, what happens? They usually, I don't know if they still do, they used to have like a sort of like a Nike week for under 12s, but I think they discontinued that. So let's not talk about under 12s. There is always, every year, a Craven week under 13. All right. Now, what happens in those tournaments is that's where they start to identify talent. All right. It starts that early at under 13. These kids aren't taken and put into academies. No, that's not done yet. They're identified at under 13. And then what happens is that the system, the South African Rugby Union system, they track these players' progress. And how they do this sometimes, let's say if a kid comes from a previously disadvantaged background, what they do is they will, sort of like create sort of like avenues where this player can have some sort of, things available to him. If they can't organize for the kid to get into a good school, then you usually find that they provide, maybe funding for him to have access to things like, supplementation to make sure that he's getting the right nutrition in his developmental stage. All right. And then after under 13, what happens? There's an under 16 tournament. Now the guy's grown a little bit. All right. He's starting to mature a little bit and he's really starting to show good skills at the under 16 tournament. What happens there? Again, they identify a pool of players again, which they're going to track. Okay? Because it does happen that sometimes, guys don't make the under 13 Craven Week. They don't play the under 13 Craven Week, so basically they're unknown. So you get guys who come through under 16 year, they get into the provincial structures, and yeah, they're identified. Again, these players are tracked. And what happens after that? They go to the Craven Week under 18. And when you get to the under 18 stages, it doesn't only stop at Craven Week. There are 3 under 18 tournaments to make sure that they filter the talent through. Okay, so you get your Craven Week under 18, you get your Academy Week under 18, and then I don't know if they renamed it, but they used to call it the 8 Noordigen Week, which was always held in Potchefstroom. So you got these 3 under 18 tournaments, which are used to basically identify more talent and track it. All right. And then obviously not all of that talent makes it through to the pros, but at least, the union, the federation, the Rugby Federation of South Africa, the South African Rugby Union, at least they've got a player database that they've been tracking all the way from under 13 right up to under 18. And again, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, guys, I'm not giving you information which I'm guessing. No, I was once part of that system too. All right. I was one of those late bloomers. I didn't make under 13 Craven Week. I didn't make under 16 Craven Week. But I made under 18 Academy Week when I was 17. And I got to witness this live where during the provincial tournament that was being played, they had like a seminar for us players where they sat us down in a room and they basically talked about, if we're trying to make rugby a profession, this is what we need to do. And then they played like a promotional marketing video about guys that had made it post high school. These were guys who were playing SA under 21. This was back in 2005. So this would be your Chili Boy, Hilton Loberts, Paul Delport, Earl Rose, that group of players. They were basically showing these guys in the gym and what these guys had to do to basically make it to the next level. So that's what they were basically promoting with us. All right. Now let's go over to soccer. The big teams, the wealthy teams within South African football, granted, they have academies set up from a young age. Like I'll make an example. My young nephew now has just joined an academy team of one of the biggest, football clubs in South Africa, and he's just enrolled in the academy as a 7-8-year-old. Okay, but now where it gets troubling within SA football is that we don't get to see this talent on display. Like there's no under 13, or let me say, if there is, it's definitely not promoted enough. It's not marketed enough. I don't know of any under 13 football tournament where the talent is on display. There's no under 16 tournament that really display. If there is no exposure for it. Like for instance, these provincial tournaments or club tournaments should be aired on TV if they do exist. There's no under 18 tournament that is basically showcasing the future of South African football. Again, if there is, they're really keeping it on the low. I know a couple of years ago, they used to have like an under 19 tournament, which they used to play on SuperSport 3, which was a couple of years ago. But again, I'm disappointed at the sports marketing that they do within South African football, because unless you're a diehard soccer fan, man, nobody even knew about those tournaments. All right. But now let's cross over back to the rugby side. If you were to ask me who was the best under 18 Craven Week rugby player of 2006, without a doubt, I can look you straight in the eye and tell you it was Stefan Watermeyer, because that year he broke Derek Hougaard's record for most points scored at a tournament at the Craven Week, and also he was named player of the tournament. And this is 2021. I can remember something from like 15 years ago. But if you were to ask me, or if I were to ask you or anyone out there, who was the best under 18 soccer player, football player in South Africa, would you be able to tell me? I doubt, because there is no tournament that is really giving exposure to these future stars. Every time a new player is introduced to the pros in South Africa, we look like, what's his story? Who the hell is that? And it shouldn't be like that. By the time a player goes pro, us as the people, who witness this, we should know his backstory, that, oh yeah, he's that kid who was really shining in that tournament a couple of years ago. When all these professional rugby players finally make it to the pros, obviously not all of them. Look, just because you play Craven Week doesn't guarantee you a professional contract. Let's just get that straight. But my point is, usually the players that really captured attention at Craven Week and really went through the under 19, under 21 ranks and then make it to the pros, by the time they make their professional debut, the whole country knows who this guy is. And that is the point I'm trying to drive home. I mean, I know that they've got the varsity cup soccer, varsity sports, varsity soccer, that, they were really trying to promote and really get on the map. I applaud that. And as a result of that, a lot of guys who were playing for the University of Pretoria, they really got to shine. A lot of varsity football players got to shine. But I believe that's not enough. There needs to be more structure to make sure that the talent is identified at a young age and we get to see it come through the ranks. Obviously, there will be players that come through along the way. There will be late bloomers. And that's why they need to keep having tournaments. All right? And not have just one big one. No, have an under 13 one, under 16, under 18, under 19, under 21, and then the varsity soccer. And then after that, the pros. Because you're really trying to create platforms where players can really get, the utmost opportunity to make it to the pros, man. Because at the moment, guys, they become so discouraged in South African soccer, with regards to their chances of making it pro. When I was in high school, I went to school with some really talented soccer players, but other guys chose other sports. Like a very good friend of mine, Temba Madima, who was, two-sport athlete. Temba was very talented as a footballer and as an athlete, 200, 400 meter runner. But Temba chose athletics because he just didn't see a future in football. I had a meeting with him. I interviewed him for a magazine that I used to run, and I asked him, why did he choose athletics over football? And he said it was simple. He said he chose athletics because athletics was giving him more of a future. He got a full scholarship for athletics to study at the University of Pretoria. Soccer didn't offer him anything. So for me, what I thought about was, if a talented player like this, if football is losing talent like this, then no wonder we're struggling at the top. Because, and this is no knock against guys who make it to the top. I'm sure some guys really, really grind to eventually make it to play professional football in South Africa. But I just feel that a lot of the, extravagant talent, a lot of the exceptional talent is lost because guys just don't see a way forward. Guys just would rather opt to go study and get themselves a degree and get themselves a safe job rather than, rolling the dice and taking a chance on this professional football thing. And I really think that is where things become troubling. Fixing South African soccer would definitely not take a lot of things. SAFA has money. South Africa has abundant talent. All that is needed is just to, maybe research, man. The guys who are in charge of SA football, travel more, guys. Go to places like the USA, Go to places like Europe and really see how the structures are formed to bring the players through. And that's all it takes. Or if the guys don't want to travel too far, just go over to the rugby side. Visit, places like Loftus. Visit, places like where the Lions Rugby Union train, if you're a Joburg team or Pretoria team. And research how these guys establish their structures. Or if you don't want to work with the clubs, visit, have meetings with South African Rugby Union and just, swallow your pride and ask them, how are you guys making sure that at least the bulk of the SA rugby talent in South Africa is coming through to make it to the pros? There is so much talent that even with the talent that comes through within SA rugby, there is still an abundance of talent that doesn't actually make it to the pros. And that's what it should be for the football sphere as well. There should be so much talent coming through that SAFA should be able to handpick and make sure that the cream rises to the top. Because these troubling times that SA football is going through, and I'm not going to lie to you, I'm talking to you from a perspective of a person who's a sports agent in another country. There's no demand for SA footballers out here in Asia because of the state of our national team. And it really is unfair to keep on hiring and firing coaches and all that other stuff, man, where this thing could really be fixed by just making sure that the structures, the proper structures are established to make sure players are identified at a young age and tracked, to make sure players are given platforms to really display their talent and not hidden in academies. And that you hear that, so and so is at an academy. That's all good and well, but how is this talent tested? That is my question. And also to just talk about training methods now. I think a lot of the team's training methods are a little outdated, and that is why our players often get criticized in terms of their strength and conditioning. And the story I'm about to tell you is something I observed when I used to play rugby at the University of Pretoria. This is when I was still at the Tuks Bulls Academy, Rugby Academy in Pretoria. So we used to have our gym sessions at the High Performance Center. All right. So the one time SuperSport United had booked a session to be in the gym with us. And I remember being in the gym and witnessing those guys in the gym, and I was so disappointed. These guys were supposed to be professional soccer players, and they were just goofing off in the gym. Guys were on their smartphones, showing each other pictures of either girls they were with the night before, or maybe girls that they're currently pursuing, or whatever. But you could see that the focus was not on the grind over there. And at this stage, I was 21. This was back in 2009. All right. This was back in 2009. And I remember at that time, we used to train intense, because we were trying to get into the under 21 Currie Cup setup. So me and my gym partner, we must have been pushing, bench press, we must have been pushing around 120, 135. Squats, we must have been pushing around 160, 170 kilograms. And these guys were looking at us in awe, like we were fucking crazy, man. And, SuperSport United, it's a team that I've always loved and respected. And SuperSport did very well. They were doing well during those seasons. But I think 2009 was when they were starting to fall off a bit. And I'm not surprised because I was very disappointed. I can name you the players that were really putting in the work. At the time, I think the captain was Ricardo Katza. So he was working hard in the gym. Bongani Khumalo was working hard in the gym. And then two other guys. All the other guys, were just walking around with their pants halfway down, and they were just, they were just not focused. And so after 2009, 2010, I got my first stint to play abroad. And I remember when I was in Ireland, what I always did when I played abroad, I would have the gym that I use with the team, and then I would always sign up to a gym where I can train by myself. And I remember the one I would train by myself in, like there would be a lot of guys who were soccer players, guys who played for big clubs in Northern Ireland. And I remember witnessing how hard those guys worked. Just a slight difference, guys. Strength and conditioning is taken for granted in so many aspects. Strength and conditioning can literally be the difference between you being an elite athlete and being an average athlete. All right. So in witnessing those guys, it sort of gave me this whole thing that, okay, I finally realized what is making our players weaker. It's the fact that they just don't take things like gym very seriously. So it's a mindset type of thing. A lot of people go on their Twitters and their Facebooks and they tweet about how elite the English Premier League is and basically football in Europe. And it's no fucking wonder, man. Those guys work hard at their craft. They don't only work hard on the field and on their skills. Those guys, they work hard in the gym. They work hard on the field by doing, fitness training and all that stuff. And what strength and conditioning does is it makes you quicker. So when you're playing at a faster pace, it makes your game elite. And another thing, the culture in Europe is that when you don't work hard, and there's always people watching, whether it's the trainer, and sometimes the head coach goes and he watches the guys. If you don't work hard, guess what happens? As much as your contract is guaranteed, they can dock your pay. If you're starting to appear lazy or you goofing off in things like the gym or at training, they dock your pay. That's how seriously those guys take it over there, man. That's how seriously they take it. It's the same thing with rugby over in Europe as well. If you fuck around, man, and you're just stuffing around, they dock your pay, plain and simple. If you're underperforming and you're showing lack of strength because you're busy fucking around in the gym and all the other resources that have been afforded to you and you taking them for granted, they dock your pay. So I think maybe that's what needs to start happening, man. But I don't want to focus too much on the pro teams. My main thing about, today's topic is just, I think the problem that could be addressed, basically the solution to the problem, is just setting up structures. I would love to know on a yearly basis who the best under 18 football player in South Africa is, because what that does is it sets the future up for the players so that we know that by the time this kid debuts, we know his story. We've witnessed his journey. He's not some flash in the pan guy that just appeared from nowhere. Like, who the fuck is this guy? Who's he? Where did they find him? But obviously, there are late bloomers. There are guys who are only going to be discovered at a later stage. My point that I'm making is that I just feel that there needs to be more structure so that players can be tracked. Players can really come through the ranks and players can have a platform to shine, man. I would love to see my little nephew playing in, a couple of club tournaments. Club tournaments, age group club tournaments, where he gets to face kids that play for the Kaizer Chiefs Academy, where he gets to play against kids that play against the Orlando Pirates Academy, and it gets to be displayed on national television. That's where it starts. That's how you start grooming these guys for the future. Not keeping them hidden where nobody knows about them and then all of a sudden guys just pop up from nowhere. Structures, guys. Structures. I know it seems like it's not that important, but I swear to you, those things are what set up the stars of the future. All of these players, big name players that you are seeing shining in the Bok jersey, I promise you at least a good 60, a good 60% of them played provincial rugby at some point in their career. Even if they didn't play Craven Week, even if they just played Academy Week. But they got that opportunity and they had a platform where they played and they were tracked by the system. And now with the Varsity Cup as well, it makes it even better to witness the stars of the future. And I just want that for South African soccer as well. Because, again, guys, talent is there, man. Just look at the golden generation before these guys. That is proof that the talent in South Africa is there. The talent in South Africa is healthy. It just needs to be nurtured. The right structures need to be put in place to make sure that the right amount of training, strength and conditioning, and just, the player's mentality gets changed. And the fact that guys are coming from previously disadvantaged backgrounds is no fucking excuse anymore. There are plenty of rugby players that come from previously disadvantaged backgrounds. But those guys are taught from when they come into the industry that you either need to buy into the culture of what's going on or you get the fuck out. Plain and simple. Look at the Springbok rugby captain, Siya Kolisi. He comes from humble beginnings. Yes, he got an opportunity to attend a good school after he played under 13 Craven Week. So that's my point, that because he was selected to play in a provincial tournament as a 13-year-old, that's where Grey High School saw him play and they gave him a scholarship. It's all about opportunity, guys, and just having the platform, So, yeah, man, I hope that everyone understands, the points that I'm trying to make. And again, guys, with all the points that I'm giving in this podcast, man, it's really not I think this, I think that. It's really stuff that I've observed firsthand. This isn't secondhand information that I got from someone. This is firsthand information that I definitely know and I've witnessed. And having the opportunity to have played in so many countries, really helped open my eyes, to see certain things and to know that, no, man, the problem we have back home, it really isn't that big. All it takes is just making a few changes because the financial resources are there. The resources are there. There is no reason why South Africa shouldn't be the king of football in the whole African continent with the access and the resources that we have compared to other African countries. There is no freaking excuse why Senegal should be better than South Africa when we have the high performance center in Pretoria, the high performance center in freaking Cape Town, and I think they built a high performance center in Bloem as well. There is no excuse. Like if you would see some of the training facilities that those African countries are using to bring their players through, it makes you wonder how some of those players actually come through. And it's plain and simple, guys. Those guys just wanted more. Those guys just wanted more. You can, a lot of, football players from those countries always reach out to me and you can hear the hunger, the desperation in their voices when I connect with them online for a chat, that these guys are really looking for that opportunity. And I just feel that back home, and we've been spoiled to the extent where guys now have just fallen into this this trap of just feeling entitled. And that's not how it should be, guys. It's still a privilege to make it to the pinnacle of your career. It's still a privilege to play professional football, to make it to the pros, whether you're in South Africa or anywhere in the world. So definitely, this is my message to the South African Football Association. I'm always going to support and stand by my countrymen, but I do believe that certain changes and structural changes need to be implemented. It's unacceptable that South Africa is failing to qualify for World Cups when we have so much abundant talent and abundant resources to make elite athletes. All right. Okay, so that is the podcast for tonight, man. This topic, I thought about it this week. It just hit me this week, and I'm still on the search to basically create that opportunity and get my first professional South African football player signed in Japan. I'm still on that pursuit. I believe it is going to happen, but the individual that I select to represent, he's got to be above average, because getting a South African guy to sign a contract to play in Japan, that's literally going to be the breaking down of the door, the breaking down of the barrier for other players that are going to follow. So if a guy comes over and the club's not impressed, guess what? That closes the door for the ones coming after them. All right. The reason why there are so many rugby players playing in South Africa is because the guys who played here previously, they really represented, they really did well. I include myself in the conversation too. You're welcome. Yeah, that's just a little joke. But anyway, just back to the point that, it really would be good just to get the structures underway and to see the talent of the future flourishing right in front of our eyes before they make it to the pros. Okay. All right. So thank you once again for tuning in to our podcast, Sports Biz from an agent's perspective. And remember, we don't only talk sports, we fucking lived it. All right. So that's it from me, signing off from Tokyo, Japan. It's a beautiful evening. Winter's settling in, man. It's freaking cold. But have yourselves a good day, a good evening, or whatever time zone you're on. All right? Cheers. Peace.